Well, without further ado, it would be my honor and pleasure to introduce Kate Bispala, our speaker here today. She's the founder and owner of Harriet and Alice. It is a yarn and gift store in Edina, Minnesota. She taught high school civics and U.S. history for 16 years in St. Louis Park. After taking a few years off, she opened Harriet and Alice in 2017. It is a shop that offers project support as well as classes in addition to selling yarn. She is the proud mom of 3 beautiful children and has been married to her husband for 25 years, whom she met at UMD. So please welcome Kate Bispala.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me today. I was connected with the Rotary through one of my customers, which is so really lovely that she thought that my story was kind of a big deal. So I appreciate it, and thank you all for having me today. So I grew up in Richfield. My mom was an elementary school teacher and in Richfield and Edina, and my dad was a constant entrepreneur. I was the kid that didn't know how to explain what her dad did because it was always a bunch of different things, and it changed all the time. He was always consulting with different people and working with different cities for city planning, and then all of a sudden he was working with an architect. I'm like, you're not an architect. It was just a bunch of things. So it was, the entrepreneurial spirit was definitely within me. After graduating from high school, I went to UMD, and I really kind of chose UMD because it was near Lake Superior, and I really liked the North Shore. And it happened to have a school of education. So I went there thinking, okay, I can do this. My mom was a teacher. I can do it. I don't want the little ones, though. I'm going to do the big ones. Because at first I was like, lots of hugs and snotty noses, and I don't know. And then I realized that the teens wanted the hugs too, and it was great. I double majored in social studies education and history, and did my student teaching at Patrick Henry High School in North Minneapolis. And that's kind of where I decided that I didn't want to do the easy thing. Like, I didn't want to be the one that checked into the classroom every day. I spewed my information, and then they took it all in and took notes because they were there to learn, and everything was going to be hunky-dory. I enjoyed the challenge. I enjoyed students who came into my space who had challenges that I was not experiencing, and I just wanted to give them love. And so I did that for 16 years in St. Louis Park. I was never like, I was a teacher where if the sub didn't show up for me, the whole building would be like, what's gonna happen? Her kids are free. And but in the end, they would surprise everyone because they respected me and I respected them. I learned that creating relationships was the most important thing. And telling them, if I was going to have a relationship with them and they trusted that it was authentic, then they would then take in the 3 branches of government and all the things that I also needed to teach them. But in the end, we all learned from each other all the time. And that was because of the relationships we fostered together. I kind of went off script a little bit already, so sorry about that. After 16 years of teaching, or entering my 16 years, I ended up taking a break. And it wasn't because I didn't love the teenagers coming into my space every day or anything like that. It kind of, all of my life came to a head kind of all in one day. I was turning 40. I was going to go to Miami in January for my birthday, and the district didn't give me a day off. They gave me Thursday, but not Friday. And I'm like, well, I'm going to be in Miami on Thursday, so it's going to be hard to be here on Friday. And they're like, yeah, but it's next to a holiday, so you can't do it. And now, in 16 years, it was the first time that had actually ever happened to anybody. And so I was like, really? I've I've been here, I've been putting in my dues, and it was just kind of in the midst of a bunch of other things. I had a friend who was battling ovarian cancer for the second time around. My kids were young, but there was just a lot going on, and I thought, no, I need this. And my mom was sitting there, and I was making dinner for my friend, and I'm like, stirring the pasta and all these other things so that I could get this meal off to a friend. And my mom's like, it's okay, you don't have to. And I was like, oh, okay, you're right, I don't have to. Like, this is too stressful right now, I don't have to. And so the next day, went in, I told my partner, my teaching partner, and I said, this is what I'm doing. And she's like, okay. And then I went to the principal and I gave my letter of resignation. And I said, I'm taking a leave at the end of the semester. And it was a childcare leave because my youngest was still in pre-K. So I had one semester left to access that. And I said, oh yeah, and I'm also still going to Miami. Because I have my ticket and I already have the sub and they'll be there. And if you dock my pay, it's fine. If that's what you have to do to save face somewhere, whatever, that's fine. But it's going to be fine for everybody and whatnot. And so I did. Unfortunately, my end of semester kept moving because that was the winter where it was like freezing cold and they kept canceling school. So then they ended up pushing the semester back. And so I kept going into February and I was like, no. I was like, the 27th of January, I'm done. 28th of January, I'm done. 29th, So anyway, but it worked out. I took a break. I put in for a leave every year for a couple years. And then I was out on a hiking trip with some friends. And one of my friends was like, I'm going to do some career inventory testing. I'm going to see what else I can do. And she was a former teacher too. And I was like, that's a great idea. I got home, I took 3 tests. Every single one of them said teaching or retail. And I was like, well, teaching is out, so retail it is. And, there are a few things that are part of that. It's like, well, what is that retail space for you? And so I was doing some of the research for that and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then a local yarn store was closing, and it was my local yarn store, Needlework Unlimited in South Minneapolis. And I learned that Karen was retiring. She wanted to hang out with her grandkids that were living in Arizona and all these other things. So it wasn't that her business wasn't thriving, it was that she needed a break and she was going to take it. And so I thought, okay, I'm not going to buy her space. She had needlepoint. I think somebody was talking to me about needlepoint earlier, which I didn't do. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to craft my own space and do that. And so that was the fall of 2016. I reached out to Karen after she closed everything down. She and I sat down and we're like, okay, yep, this is what you need to do. Here are some connections, some people, things to remember. It's not just about yarn. It's also a business. And which was really good advice because I did love to knit. I had been knitting for, now almost 20 years and actually over 20 years now. But I thought, okay, I can do this. This is going to be fun. And so I took the leap. I had my friend helped me out with the branding and everything else. And by June of 2017, it opened Harriet and Alice on the 50th and France neighborhood in Edina. And I didn't want it to be kind of a yarny name because most of my friends didn't knit. And I needed them to support me. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do the gift part too. So I reached out a bunch of different local makers and to see if I could sell their wares in my shop. So I had everything from jewelry to candles, coasters, bags, things like that. Just anything I could find that was locally created, that people might pop in and say, oh, I saw this cute bag in the window, and then, oh, you have yarn. Oh, I want to learn how to knit. Oh, I can teach you. So that's kind of how it all started. Harriet and Alice are my grandmothers, so I named the shop after them. And part of that is that they're both of me, right? Harriet was an elementary school teacher and principal. When she retired, they hired 3 men to replace her because she was the only principal in the district in North Dakota that was required to also have a full-time classroom while she was principal, and they did not give her a secretary. But she just did it. She's like, I love it, I'm gonna do it. She was also a fabulous weaver. And then Alice, she was that everything 50s woman. She would bake and can and sew everyone's clothes and everything else. And then as I knew her, she was a painter and a seamstress. And she should have had state fair entries with her Raggedy Ann dolls, but she never wanted to go beyond Freeborn County Fair. But don't mess with her. She was 5 feet tall, and you did not mess with Alice. So there's strength there in their names and in their beings. So now again, I went off script a little bit. So in June of 2017, we opened up during the Edina Art Fair, and about 6 months later, they started the construction on Nolan Mains. And so we were right next to it. And so it was hard to find us. They had paint on the ground all the way around to try and help you find a place from the parking lot, and where is this store, which color do I follow, purple or gold. And we were actually next to both, so it was perfect. You could still find us. But there was a lot that I had to do as far as hustling. A lot of Instagram, a lot of newsletters, trying to inspire people, getting my name out there. My dad was amazing. Like, he had my business cards with him at all times and was passing them out. Did you know that my daughter has a store? So it was things like that. It really, word of mouth was really important. Our mannequins had construction helmets on. Safety first. We just really did our best to make light of the situation, but also try and bring as many people in as possible. Because the thing about a yarn store is you need people who want to knit or crochet, and they can't just, not know what to do. So we have to teach those things and be a welcoming space for all of that as well. One thing that's been consistent throughout our time has been trying to have a positive attitude no matter the situation. I've had a lot of different hiccups with water coming from above, from the dentist that was above us for a while, and things like that, which doesn't go well with your business, if it's pouring in from above and you don't have water in your space, technically. But yarn brings us joy, and we want to have that, help spread the joy. We continue to bring in a community through knit and crochet groups, working together to do charity knitting, and we've had retreats and things like that where we're bringing together people. Construction ended in January of 2020. Yes. Great, we're good, we're through it, we did it. Yep. So thankfully, around that time I was also building my online store. So my husband was in the tech industry, and everyone we know would ask, when is your online presence? And I'm like, I'm trying to build a brick and mortar here, and we'll see. And it's hard, and I don't want to say I'm a one-woman show, but the things that are being done it's all me, unless you're coming into the space, and then it's all my people. So the online store is me, and monitoring whether Google tells you that I'm open or not is me, because I have to remember to change it on the website and on the Instagram and the Facebook and Google and then the other page on the website that also has, so there's a lot, and as business owners, we know this. So thankfully, I was starting to build the online presence, and I sat in my kitchen every night and just put more yarn online. And thankfully, we had a good customer base by that time, and people were buying online. And I would sneak into the shop once or twice a week, even though I was supposed to be at home, and ship things out as much as possible. And started doing curbside pickup and limited hours and things like that. We thankfully got a grant from the city of Edina, which helped us with our rent and other things, because I don't know if you know this, but your sister will. April's a big month in Minnesota yarn community, because there used to be Yarn Over, which is the Minnesota Knitters Guild event, big marketplace, lots of sales. There's the local yarn store day, which is a national thing. Designers put out designs, you sell a lot of yarn, it's a big deal. And then we have the Minnesota Yarn Shop Hop, where you have somebody dye thousands of, hundreds of skeins of yarn, not thousands, hundreds of skeins of yarn for you specifically for that event, for the one design that you're going to put out in 2 weeks. And it all comes in right as everything's shutting down. So it was a big, like a little bit of a hiccup. Lots of tears, but then people started calling, I want to buy a gift card, I want to buy this, I want to do this. And the community was very supportive. So anyway, what I found that, through this whole process is that, yes, I have a business and it's kind of a big deal, but really for us, it's our customers. And they are, they're going to get us through because we're going to get them through whatever they're going through. Something that's been such a key to our business success has been the mantra of all are welcome. And it's true. It's a unique business because somebody's going to come in with their project and be like, I don't know what happened, and I need to help them at that moment, at the same time helping somebody buy yarn or needles or something. But we really get to know our customers differently because they're in for an extended period of time. They're coming for knit group, they're coming to talk, they're coming just to escape their husbands like my mother. Totally fine, totally fine. It's 100% true. She would call me, oh, Katie, you need me? You need me? Oh, David, I gotta go. And that's fine, and we're here for you. And we also joke in the shop, what happens in the yarn shop stays in the yarn shop. Except now I just revealed my mom's secret on the television. So she'll be fine. And it's true, because when you're sitting down for an hour or two with a group of people who you may just have met, you're still, telling stories and talking about things and getting to know each other through what you're making, but also about what's happening in your lives. And people feel comfortable in our space, people feel cared for, and they know that we're going to stand up for them and they're going to stand up for us. And I think that's why we've been successful. Lots of bumps throughout, but we've been here for 6 years now. I now have one kid who's a junior in college. I have a senior in high school, and my youngest just started high school today. Our shop has expanded. So we were very small, and we would have knit group, and we would just move furniture around and hope to be able to sell yarn around the people. Now we have a classroom space and more yarn, possibly too much. But that's okay. We have shared the joys and sadness of our customers along the way, as well as our own, and that's probably never going to change. Just like when I started teaching, I'm not here for the easy path. I'm here for the relationships and the yarn. So that's my story. Yes?
I have a question, and if you can, or repeat it if it's someone in the back. You talked about charitable knitting or charitable, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so a variety of things. We consistently do 2 charity projects. We have Hats for the Homeless, which is run locally, and we collect knitted hats, but also anything that could be donated. And then our customer Barb and her friends pass those things out. Last year, we donated over 500 hats to Hats for the Homeless. We also do Hat Not Hate, which is more of a national organization, and they collect blue hats for an anti-bullying campaign in schools. And last year, we were able to donate enough hats to 2 elementary schools in St. Louis Park, so over 1,000 hats. And we will do the same again this fall. And then we've also done like just kind of some pop-up ones. So we did the Tree of Life Synagogue a number of years ago after the shooting there. A local yarn store there asked to collect squares with a tree in the square, and then they assembled it into Afghans and donated them to the people of the synagogue there. And we're always adding to that. So if you have a charitable organization that you feel passionately about, give me a call. We'll see what we can do. So, yes?
That made me think of prayer shawls. Do you do prayer shawls or the little prayer squares or any of those?
Right. So we have lots of customers that do. Specifically, they'll come in, to make a prayer shawl. We don't collect prayer shawls at our store and donate them, I think, most of the time, because that's done at various organizations. So we can obviously help find patterns and yarn and things like that for that, but we don't collect those. Yes. Yes?
Who makes the best yarn? What is it made of today? And has preferences shifted over the last few years?
Right. So depends on who you're talking to. So who makes the best yarn and where does it come from and shifts and things like that. I would say this. At our store, we sell what we say is like only natural fibers. There'll be some nylon and yarn, but we deal with wool, cottons, linens, alpaca, cashmere, things like that. Little cashmere, not a cashmere, but so I think it just kind of depends on the individual. A lot of people will come in, well, I don't want it to be scratchy. So what's scratchy to me is different than what's scratchy to, say, my husband or another person. My husband doesn't like wool at all. I'm wearing a wool sweater today. Doesn't matter. So those kinds of things really depend. And then the other thing is that there's such a variety. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say that somebody makes the best yarn, but maybe more along the lines of like when people bringing in like with their colors and how they dye it and things like that. We have some Minnesota local dyers, like Lavender Loon Yarn Company. Sam is from the Brainerd area, and her yarns are fabulous and her colors are amazing, and we just kind of constantly are bringing in her yarn and selling it. So I think it really does depend on the individual, but there's lots of great stuff out there. And I'll have something from like the softest thing ever to Lopi from Iceland. So it's very Icelandic wool, and it's going to be toothy and sticky and everything else. So, and people are going to love or hate that, but also the same with the, superwash wools. So, yeah.
So I talked to Kate right before the meeting. My mother taught me how to knit when I was 6 years old during the Milwaukee blizzard. You look up 1947, now you know how old I am. And it was a blizzard that just shut everything down, and there's a book written actually about that. And then I did a little bit then, but then I wanted to do it in college because a lot of my classmates were doing it. And she just discouraged me. She said, I'll do the knitting, you've got studying to do. So I didn't learn, again, I took a class. I'm glad to hear you're open again. Is it still called Needlework Unlimited? No, it's the two grandmothers. Never mind.
Harriet. Yeah.
Okay.
But we probably took a class at Needlework
I
Unlimited.
did.
Yeah.
And I've made socks. And I've done oodles of socks. If you,
And you probably
No,
use
I'm
the
not
same
gonna
pattern
vouch.
that my mom uses because she got it from Needlework Unlimited and makes the same. She
Yeah.
has it memorized.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
yeah, and I've made those strawberry hats that are really cute for new babies. Oh, that's right. I bet you don't fit anymore. Yeah, but I'm glad to hear
You
you're
got 2
open.
days.
No, I might have one started. I do have one started. You didn't keep the other one? Never mind that.
Well, and that's, we offer classes and things for kids, but also adults and anything from beginning to various skill levels. And that just keeps your interest peaked, right? And something new and something different. There's so many great things you can do. So, yeah.
I had a question about how the pandemic affected your business. Did you find more people were picking up like crocheting and knitting and that sort of thing? And suddenly you had a new base of business that you didn't have before?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I did have a number of people who were like, oh, I started this sweater at Needlework Unlimited when my kids were babies. And Rosemary taught me because she taught everyone at that store and probably in the Twin Cities over a certain generation. And then it's been 20 years, now what? So they come back to it, but also people who wanted to do it. I think the hardest part was I was able to do virtual classes for pretty much everything but beginning. I felt like beginning, I as a high school teacher, I can see what's happening, right? I know what was happening and if they're at my table, but if they're on the internet, I can't see that they're making a mistake at the same time. So that was hard. So a lot of people like learned online or did that on their own and then came in or bought more yarn or whatever. Yeah. So I think that part did give a boost. I think that knitting knitting has been on the rise as a hobby, or a passion. Crochet is making a huge comeback right now, which is amazing. So I have to get better at that myself. Always something new to learn, but yeah, it's good. Yes.
So going from education into creating a business, that takes a lot of expertise in how to set up a business. Tell us about how you did that, and especially since you were buying another business and then going into business yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I did not buy the other business. I started straight up. That's okay. But there's a learning curve, right? And to figure out how to source your product, what you need to make per month or per week in order to keep things going and to pay the rent and what kind of rent you can afford to pay and those kinds of things. I think I'm still definitely learning. Because the business aspect it's not my instinct is the teaching and the creative piece. And so a lot of times Mondays are my time to like go, okay, yeah, business, do that part. So I think that's been probably the hardest part. But like I have a lot of good people nearby or either within the space as my employees who have good ideas or creative ideas that can help in certain ways, or just My husband's also an entrepreneur, so he kind of knows about starting businesses and things like that too. So he started quite a few as well. I don't know. I married my dad apparently, but seems to have worked out. So yeah.
I was going to ask you if you have very many men take classes.
Oh, yeah.
It's- In my past, I've gotten into some unusual situations, including male artists incarcerated in
Oh, yeah.
Baltimore Heights, because they
Yeah.
have a lot of time. And there were a bunch of them that were painting and doing other things, but also knitting and crocheting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't have to be incarcerated to learn how to knit or crochet. But yes, but I would say, yeah, I do have a number of customers who from all genders, all races, all everything, age range and everything. In fact, one of our good customers had three entries in the state fair. Got third for his hat using our exclusive yarn hot dish. He was very excited to share that. He went into the fair, I swear he was there at 7 a.m. the opening day, and then came to the shop for knit group that afternoon and said, yay! So yes, we have it's like I said, all are welcome. And lots of people who are knitting. I did have a customer say just last week, she said that she donated a bunch of yarn that she inherited from a neighbor to the prison in Moose Lake because they have a knit group there. So that's also, and they make toys for children, which is cool. So, yeah.
Then there's a name, Rosie Greer, that comes to my brain.
Yeah.
He was a knitter. Was he a wrestler or fighter? That was amazing.
Maybe you would like to comment on the countries and the animals that the fibers and the dyes come from. I mean, that's fascinating.
It's kind of, yeah, I mean, share with me who your sister is. Oh, yeah. So, Nancy is a rep of mine. Actually, she was my first connection in the yarn community, and she's fabulous. Good job. So, but yeah, so yarn is coming from all over the place. And so Peru, so Blue Sky Fibers, for example, they're a local yarn company. They get most of their wool from Peru. And then there's, I'm drawing a blank because Nancy hooked me up with another company, out of Argentina, and so South American yarns, but also I have yarn that comes out of South Africa and kind of all over the place. So it really depends on the various companies and how you reach out as a store where you're bringing them from. So. Also the animals. Oh yeah, so. Yeah. So you've got llama, alpaca, sheep. I don't actually have any rabbit yarn in the store, but it's from everywhere. And you should check out the Sheep and Wool Festival in Mother's Day weekend usually, which is really fabulous. And you can see them shearing the sheep and all sorts of things. Yes.
I apologize, I can't remember what exactly this is, but there's a place in, I think, Harmony, Minnesota, where a lady raises Angola goats or something. Are you familiar with that? Any yarn?
I don't, but I'm now intrigued. I'm going to have to start looking that up.
She may still be open. They would hire, she would take young single mothers and bring them in, and she had the goat thing, which you could tour to see the goats, but they would weave products and sell them in a little store there. I think it's Harmony, but I'm not sure.
Well, if it comes to you before we leave, let me know. Anyone else? Any other questions? No? All right. Well, thank you very much.